Ladies and gentlemen, this is a conversation with Representative Devin Nunes and Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, hosted by Washington Examiner's Byron York.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to talk today a bit about the Russia investigation. And you know, there have always been two Russia investigations. There's the one that is searching for that most elusive of creatures, collusion. And it's run by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, and the Justice Department and the Senate Intelligence Committee. And we hear about it 24/7. It's on everywhere in the news. But then there is a second Russia investigation, and that is the one looking into what the United States government, what its intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies did in targeting a presidential campaign in 2016. And we have here two men who have played key roles in looking into that. Representative Devin Nunes of California, and Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Oh, a lot of Fitton fans out there. Yeah. So, Representative Nunes, we're going to start with you. You were basically the person who invented this investigation. You started it, and you've seen it through to a number of revelations. And I'm going to ask you an open-ended question. Where do you think it stands now? Your committee spent yesterday questioning Michael Cohen behind closed doors. Yeah. And I want to ask you where you think things are going now.
Well, from the very beginning of this investigation, it was a narrative. It was a narrative that was created to first go after a presidential campaign and be kind of an October surprise. That's really what it was about. So it was the Clinton campaign with their dirty ops. And then, sadly, what we discovered is they fed that into the FBI, and then it was used against a presidential campaign and then now a sitting administration. So you have to look at everything as almost like a movie script, like a fictional movie script. So you brought up yesterday. So yesterday we had the president's former lawyer in, not for the first time, it was the second time. He already came in behind closed doors. He was already busted for lying to Congress. But what you saw yesterday, it was behind closed doors, Byron. And why was it behind closed doors? Because they want it to be secret, so that then they can run out and they can talk to all the mainstream media who are in search of that ever-elusive collusion, conspiracy, obstruction animal.
I want to be clear. You held it, because the chairman decided to, in this secret room called a SCIF, where you can discuss the most classified information. And Michael Cohen does not have a government security clearance, right? So he can't discuss. He doesn't have classified information. And your members, you know classified things, but you can't tell Michael Cohen because he doesn't have a clearance.
Right. So it's a way to, so the audience understands, it's a way to keep everything secret, even though there's nothing that Michael Cohen knows that would be classified, and there's nothing that we could share with him that would be classified. So that's why I say this was all about building the narrative out, because what do they want to have? Even though Michael Cohen, we asked over and over, you know, at least what you saw publicly, and even his lawyer last night said that he's not changing his position. He testified a year and a half ago that he had no evidence of collusion, conspiracy, or obstruction. It's still the same today. His lawyer said so last night on television. But what he did say now is that there's this, I mean, you have to really wear your tinfoil hat to believe this, that there's a secret code that Donald Trump talks in, and that's what Michael Cohen knows.
Right. Right. That's it. Now, I want to come to Tom, who basically you're a leader in doing this sort of investigation outside of government. And you have perfected the art of using a lawsuit to try to shake loose information. So what are you trying to shake loose right now?
Well, we want to know about the deep state effort to overthrow the President of the United States. You know, in many ways, it's remarkable. The President is a crime victim. He was targeted illegally by the Obama administration. You know, the story this week isn't about Cohen's testimony. It's about the abuse of power by Congress targeting him and violating his rights by destroying his attorney-client privileges, taking documents they don't have any right to. You know, Mr. Cummings and frankly Schiff may as well broken into his offices and taking those documents, legally speaking, by illicitly bringing in Mr. Cohen and taking documents from them that he had no right to. And it's, you know, Judicial Watch that is getting these documents out. The trouble with Congress is that they're able sometimes to get documents but can't release them. And Judicial Watch uses this legal process, not WikiLeaks, a legal process, to get these documents out, showing the FISA abuses, showing there were never any hearings about the targeting of President Trump through spy warrants, showing that Christopher Steele was paid with the FBI funds, seemingly in a joint operation with the Clinton campaign and the DNC. All that's coming out through independent investigations. We've heard elements of it thanks to Devin Nunes, but the documents are only coming out through independent investigations despite objections of this Justice Department and this FBI, which I think remains a challenge for those of us seeking transparency here.
And Byron, if I may, just to build on what Tom said, people need to understand what they're doing here. They're not going to find collusion. They're not going to find obstruction. You're already seeing them leak out that Mueller's not going to have anything. So Tom made a very important point. They're using these documents that they're getting because now what they're going to target is they're going to target all of Trump's businesses. And that's what this all is about. Get as many documents as you can. Say that you have these secret documents that nobody's seen before, and then there'll be this new supposed crime that Trump at some point
And
did.
zero oversight over the Mueller operation. It's King Mueller of the Justice Department. He's one of the reasons we can't get access to this information. And in terms of an outrage, Mueller has been a zombie investigation for well over a year now. They've known for well over a year there's been no Russia collusion, yet he's been allowed to rampage through the countryside, targeting these ancillary individuals over, in many ways, what are nonsense in prosecutions, and no one's shutting it down. Mueller needs to be shut down, and I'm kind of an outlier here. There's this debate about the report. There's a debate about the transparency of a report. This Justice Department has no business writing reports on the president's conduct as president, his conduct of foreign policy, his decision to fire Comey. We already have one shady dossier, Byron, and we don't need Mueller's operatives who are anti-Trumpers writing another shady dossier for use by their allies on the Hill, again, to try to illicitly overthrow our president. It's not about Russia, it's about protecting our republic. And as far as I'm concerned, Hillary Clinton may as well as gavelled those hearings into session this week, because her ghost is looming over this, because but for this investigation, you can bet she'd be on the dock.
Well, these hearings are the direct result of the 2018 elections, and you used to be chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and now you are the ranking member, and that's an enormous difference. So Democrats are using the power that the voters gave them. Now, as far as your investigation, how can you carry on without the power that you had as chairman?
Well, luckily, the only thing that we don't have now is subpoena power, but we still have the power to continue to investigate. One of the things that I'm going to begin to lay out is kind of the final phase of our investigation. Now, some of that's going to take, the work that Tom's doing is very, very helpful to get documents out. But I think there needs to be, the White House is going to have to ultimately get involved to declassify all documents. And I actually think, I'm not sure that I disagree with Tom. I don't think Mueller has any report to put out that would be worthwhile of anything new. But if he does put out a report, then you're gonna see people claiming, oh, we have to have this public, it's gotta be made public.
Right.
That's fine, but I want everything that Mueller did made public. I want every email, I want everybody that they wiretapped, every warrant that they got. Every single thing that Mueller used needs to be made public for all of America to see.
Mueller's not good. Part of the Mueller report is not going to be Strzok's bias, Page's bias, the misuse of the FISA applications. None of that corruption behind the formation and operations of the Mueller investigation are going to be part of this report. And this is why we need Congress, to the extent they're able to provide the oversight. And frankly, that's why we have Judicial Watch, because we're frankly the only ones providing oversight of the Mueller operation, because Congress is AWOL on it largely. And the courts are extremely deferential to the prosecutors of the Justice Department. And this is a big test for A.G. Barr, the new Attorney General. Will he stand up to President Trump, but will he stand up for President Trump and for the rule of law?
Let me go now to the congressman, and looking back on these 2 years of the Trump administration that you were the chairman, I think one of the things that really surprised a number of Republicans outside of Congress was when you began to try to find out what the FBI, what the Justice Department had done in the Trump investigation. You're a Republican chairman, they're a Republican-led Justice Department, and you're getting stonewalled by this. And I think a lot of Republicans were kind of surprised by the fact that this Republican Justice Department was stonewalling you on this. So the question is, what do you think was going on?
Well, the Republicans the Trump administration never had control of the Justice Department. I mean, that's really what happened.
Well, they appointed the Attorney General.
They were, right when Attorney General Sessions came in, and his biggest problem is that they had set him up, and they came to him and said, we've got this information, you're going to have to recuse based on these rules of the Justice Department. And that was the single biggest mistake that I think Attorney General Sessions ever made, and it really set back everything, because the Attorney General at the time, former senator, he of all people knew when they came to him and said, we have a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign and you and everybody else. He should have looked in and said, what the hell is wrong with you people? Get the hell out, you're all fired. I mean, he had to know that the Trump campaign wasn't colluding with Russians.
Mm-hmm. And this Justice Department has been frustrating for Judicial Watch, because the deep state, or frankly the top state that's refused to exercise their prerogatives in terms of getting this information out, it's been worse for us in many ways in terms of transparency than it was under the Obama administration.
Really?
At least with the Clinton emails, the Obama administration knew the whole world was watching. But once President Trump came into power, they thought they could do whatever they want because Sessions had recused himself, and the political leadership of both the Justice Department and the FBI are institutionalists. They kind of defer to the bureaucrats, because there's always a good legal argument not to be transparent. But it doesn't help self-government, and it doesn't help us battle corruption. So you've got this institutional interest versus the interest that you have in making sure these government agencies are kept under control. For instance, while they're going full bore, this Justice Department, against President Trump, we're still litigating over Clinton emails, and they're opposing us every which way. And just recently it was over the objections of this Justice Department that a federal court judge granted us discovery. We'll be gathering evidence. We'll be questioning Hillary Clinton's lawyer. Justice Department won't. Congress won't. And all of this is over the objections of the State Department and Justice Department. It's extraordinary. These agencies are targeting the president for removal, and I don't mean at the top level, but institutionally, while protecting Hillary Clinton. The collusion continues.
And don't forget, just to add an exclamation point to this, remember, it took our investigation to uncover the House Intelligence Committee, the Republicans. We're the ones that uncovered Bruce Orr, who was the #1 career official in the Justice Department, who was sitting next door to Rod Rosenstein's office. He was there until we uncovered that his wife was working for Fusion GPS, and he had essentially been acting as an FBI informant, meeting with Christopher Steele after Christopher Steele had been fired.
Right.
I mean, that's how high the corruption went, where you had basically people implanted at the very top of the Justice Department. And hopefully now Barr's going to get in there and clean all this out. But we've had a 2-year delay in the start of this administration.
And they're still hiding records. They're still hiding records, Byron. Text messages. FBI doesn't think text messages should be released under FOIA. So all those text messages you may be interested in from Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, Congress may have some of them. The Justice Department and FBI think you should have none of them.
And the bigger point, we should remind everyone that the very fact that we know that the dossier was assigned and paid for by the Clinton campaign you discovered. We would not have known that without the House investigation. So,
And I want to say Republicans specifically, because remember, the Democrats opposed every single move that we made.
and I wanted to use
move
that
that we
to
made.
make my own little plea for radical transparency in this entire investigation. We need to see pretty much everything that both the Senate, the House, and the special counsel uncover in this. And as an example, your committee, when you were chairman, interviewed 50-plus figures in your own Russia investigation, including Michael Cohen and including Roger Stone. There are these transcripts.
Right.
You have them. And the committee voted unanimously, meaning Democrats too, voted unanimously last fall to make them public. But you had to send them to the intelligence community for clearance, just in case they might have something classified in them. And most of these were not classified. They were with private people like Michael Cohen and Roger Stone. And a lot of foot dragging has taken place, and we still have not seen these.
Right.
And what can you now, as a minority member of Congress, do to make this happen?
This is actually not Congress's fault here, okay? We sent these last fall to the ODNI, okay, the Director of National Intelligence, who is supposedly checking with everybody, including the special counsel, sharing this testimony, okay? Now, that was September, and here we are, I guess it's March, and there's absolutely no reason why this has not been released publicly. But at the end of the day, this is the White House. The White House needs to pick up the phone, call the DNI, and said, enough, release this. Congress said release it, get it out.
Why haven't they done that?
That'd be a good question tomorrow when the president's here. You guys can ask him.
Look, Devin Nunes is the exception that proves the rule in congressional oversight. Just typically, chairmen don't do the work that Nunes had done, and that's one of the reasons we're in the position we're in. This is a failure by the administration. It's a failure by Congress. It's 6 months since we first learned about the coup discussions at the Justice Department and FBI. Not one congressional hearing. Judicial Watch filed a federal lawsuit. Why are we doing all the heavy lifting with virtually no help from the administration, no help from Congress on this? This is a core. Forget about the national emergency on the border. I think there is a national emergency on the border. There's a national emergency in terms of this effort by the agencies to overthrow the president through these illicit coup discussions. If there were generals and colonels talking like this, you'd all know what it was. But because they're bureaucrats over at FBI and DOJ, media is giving it a pass. And of course, the media, Byron, your colleagues in the media.
Thank you so much.
You know, again, Byron, the exception that proves the rule in terms of oversight.
Now, we have to close up, but I'd like to ask you in closing each to give your preview of the next 2 years in this. Democrats are in charge through at least the election of 2020. The special counsel is still in business, no matter what the rumors say. How does this end in the next couple of years?
Well, I believe it's going to end once you have full radical transparency, including, and I'll just finish up with this, Tom mentioned it, but the media was in on this from the beginning. I often say that the only people in Washington who didn't have the dossier from the Clinton campaign were House Republicans and the Trump campaign. Everybody else had it. Everybody in the media had the dossier starting in June, July, August, September, October, November of 2016, and you know it. It doesn't take any top secret, or you don't have to surveil anybody. All you have to do is look at the press releases that the Clinton campaign was putting out, the tweets that the Clinton campaign was putting out, and then all the stories that the media was writing that ultimately they turned around and took those reports and fed them into the FBI, and the FBI opened an investigation. So all of this needs to come out. As soon as it does, I think we can get DOJ and FBI back on the road to recovery. Because if they don't do this, you will have generations of conservatives and Republicans in this country who will not trust DOJ or an FBI, and that is not a good place for this country to be.
You know, look, from Judicial Watch's perspective, there's going to be more accountability for Hillary Clinton, more exposure of the deep state machinations against President Trump. But in many ways, more of the same. But the big X factor is the president, because his direct involvement on these transparency and anti-corruption issues can lead to historic transformation at the DOJ and FBI. If left to their own devices, we won't get the information in a timely enough way, or there won't be sufficient accountability. And the president, I would encourage just to be the best president he can be and exercise the full authority he has to direct the Justice Department, that is not a fourth branch of government, that works for him, to clean house. And his personal involvement, as it was initially with the release of the Nunes memo famously last year, led to the FISA applications being released. His firing of Comey, I'm convinced we would not know what we know about the deep state activities against him but for his firing of Comey that was protecting all of that. More of that will have a big change.
And much more to come. I want to thank everybody for coming here and allowing us a little time to talk. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.